I have not been live in so long that my phone tripod thingy is covered in dust. So I'm just taking some time to wipe it off before it flies into the food. Whatever food I end up eating today and making today. Hello to everyone who's joining. 6 people. It is a Monday afternoon, evening, currently 5 p.m.-ish in New York. Currently still pretty hot. We're just about nearing the tail end of a baby heat wave. Last Thursday in New York was apparently the most high humidity day since 2020. So even though our technical temperature hasn't been all that bad, all things considered, averages across the board, the humidity in New York has been pretty muggy, and it gets a little hard to breathe sometimes, and it constantly just feels like your body is stuck in this sticky glue situation of sweat, grime, and whatever is in the air. We are still streaming off of the Pixel 2 XL. I believe this phone is potentially, at least this model, is 9 years old. I believe it was released in 2017. Feel free to fact check me on that, but the Pixel 2 XL is still going. Let me know if you can hear my sound. I hope so. I've been wanting to make more videos, but also not wanting to make more videos, so I've been stuck in this in-between spot that's always been a little bit difficult for me to work through sometimes. Just so many conflicting feelings, and all I have are feelings and thoughts, as probably many of you know. So I decided it's been a while since we've done a live, and I wanted to cook some things today, but I didn't really feel like structuring a script for a voiceover or really taming it down to a replicable recipe format. So I just wanted to have a little bit of fun in the kitchen. It's still pretty hot, so we're not going to do a whole lot of cooking, but also knowing my track record, every time I say I'm not going to do a whole lot of cooking, I end up cooking a lot anyway, so we'll see. I was just invited to a friend's birthday walk celebration this weekend, so I'm thinking of prepping some stuff to potentially make some cookies later on in the week when it gets a little bit cooler for me to bake. It's gonna drop like maybe 3-4 degrees tops, but I'm gonna do some prep work today for that. And I was also thinking of making a rice cake dish. I've had these Korean rice cakes in my freezer for a while, and I just bought this Turkish tomato roasted red bell pepper eggplant paste called ajvar. This particular rendition has walnuts in it. I bought it for $1 because it was past its best by date, and I obviously love shops that still sell, you know, close dated stuff like that on sale. So I grabbed a couple of jars of that, and I've been thinking about how to cook with it. It is not as rich and creamy as the historically creamier ajwars I've had. This one is closer to a tomato paste. So I was thinking of doing a pasta at first, which I do have in the pantry. But I was also thinking like I would really enjoy the tok, the Korean rice cake textures this week. So I was thinking of doing like an east-west hybrid sort of thing. I also have this block of feta cheese that was in my freezer, and I was like, tomato, feta cheese, rice cakes, could we make this work with the random greens that's left in my fridge from last week? Potentially. So I wrote up a tiny little sketch of a recipe that I'm going to try to follow this time around. We'll see how it turns out. I'm just playing around, and I was inspired to kind of like return to this kind of brainstorming a rough recipe format before actually making it, because someone from The Guardian reached out to me last month and commissioned me to make a couple of recipes. I don't know what's gonna come of that, but that kind of got me into like the groove of thinking in the lane of making recipes again. And when I shot Budget Eats, I didn't really write out recipes. I wrote out rough ideas of what kinds of ingredients I wanted to use to make roughly what kind of a result. And then I would write the recipes after I shot that video to kind of streamline the trial and errors into just a thing that would work. But anyway, it felt like a little nice flash from the past sort of thing. And yeah, that's just where my head's been at. Happy that y'all are joining me today on this kind of still swampy Monday afternoon evening. I'm gonna pull up chat on the laptop so I can see y'all comments better. But I don't remember the last time I went live. It's been quite a few months, I think. A few things in my life have changed. The biggest one being I left Burlap and Barrel. I am no longer working at Burlap and Barrel. Nothing drastic happened, I was just burnt out. I think my brain just tends to burn out a lot, and I think for whatever reasons my brain burnt out and then my body started stressing. So I thought back to when Mom passed away and how she kind of pushed herself to work through the stress and how detrimental that became. So trying to really take a beat there and learn from Mom's choices and not repeat that, and knowing that I've been kind of going through these health dumps in the past few years, I figured, better play safe than be sorry. And I left as my body was saying, yes, please leave, and my heart was saying, no, please stay. And I really struggled with that decision because that probably has been the best place that I've ever worked at. I was there for just a little over 3 years, and honestly seemed like a fantasy to work in a company where you actually liked everyone you worked with and you liked the product that you were trying to sell and you enjoyed the stuff that you got to do for work. But my body was giving me all sorts of clues. I had really irregular period cycles, and that is usually the first sign that my mental health is dipping. I see a very close correlation between my menstrual cycle's regularity and my mental health, and I've learned through the years to respect my body when my body is trying to speak up about something. So that's where I'm at. So for the past month, all I've been doing is chilling at home, feeding myself good things, catching up on sleep, reading Infinite Jest. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll find all these random stories of just massive pages of screenshots from a book. That book is most probably Infinite Jest. I am on page 620, I believe. So we're roughly past the halfway mark, and that only took me 2 months to get there. So only 2 more months left to go. Let's see. I'm working off of a Pixel 2 XL to stream on, and I'm going to read your comments on my MacBook Air that is also probably at least a decade old, if not older by now. It has rainbow wheeled on me a few times already and crashed in the middle of video meetings, which was yet another clue for me to be like, okay, all of my technology is dying. Maybe it's time to take a break. But we'll see. I'm still holding on to these relics of technology because they still work, but I have been toying with the idea of what I would do once they really do die once and for all. I'm very tempted to not replace them. I think the general sense over the past even half year, I feel like the escalation in this distaste for what technology has become in our lives has significantly and noticeably increased across almost everyone that I've been talking to. I think some people are either just like going way into technology because they feel like it's the only way to kind of survive into the future, and then there's another body that's just like trying to go back to manual stuff as much as possible. And run the other way, which is we're at a very fascinating stage of society, I think. I think we read about like historical milestones like the printing press and what that does, and we've had those technologies all our lives, so we can't really recollect a time before there were reproductions of books. But I do feel like we're kind of living through one of those historical momentous moments right now, and we just don't even feel it. Although I do think on some very obvious levels, we are feeling it. The panic, the anxiety, the depression, the stress, the even ecstatic devotion, addiction, and consumption of it. Just very fascinating to witness. I could also see myself with a dumb phone, for sure. So, I can't guarantee, Shanice, that the food will be looking tasty. As you know, I like to brand my food items as hashtag trash food. It's mostly nutritious for you, but it looks like trash. So, we'll see. I'm going to read you my recipe and give you a rough idea of what ingredients I want to use, and I'm hoping it's all going to just take place on the stovetop, and I'm hoping it'll be done in 20 minutes. And Rose Lee, who has not had an update on me. Yes, Grandma did pass last January. It's been a year and a half since Grandma passed away. So, okay, the working draft recipe that I wrote up for myself to do today is called Ajvar Feta Tok. It's a Korean rice cake base. We're going to use some olive oil. I'm going to chop up half a red onion. I'm going to use some spices like black pepper, fennel seeds, garlic powder, dried scallions. I'm going to use some very basic liquid like water. I don't even have broth in my fridge at this point, so I guess I could throw some bonito flakes in there if we wanted like a fishy thing. And we're going to use about half a pound of tok, whatever I defrosted. I put in chickpeas because I didn't think I was going to cook it today, but the chickpeas are still soaking and we're not going to put chickpeas today. Maybe if I tweak this recipe and I make it again in the future, I'll incorporate chickpeas, but for today, I might add in some TVP, which is textured vegetable protein, which I really like as a ground meat substitute. And then we're gonna add in a jar of Ajvar. Where are you? This is the jar of Ajvar. I'm gonna turn my video around so you can read it. This is the brand. I tried to look up this word, Dopipa, but I just realized it's copy marked. So I think this name for it is particular to this brand, but I think in all the descriptions that I've read, this is a walnut take on Ajvar. So you'll see here the top ingredient is roasted red pepper, roasted eggplant, and then tomato paste is 79%. So that is really basically all I'm tasting in here. I'm used to this being more pepper and eggplant forward, but this one is majorly tomato paste. I was a little confounded because usually I'm used to ingredients listing the top ingredient first, but it seems like they listed the top ingredient of 79% tomato paste third, which was very confusing. And then there's a little bit of walnut in here. I definitely can't even taste it. I can maybe see some crumbs of walnut in there. I don't know what carrot sugar is, but that's fascinating. And then just a little bit of seasoning. So that is the base of this product. Usually, I think in tteokbokki, it's a gochujang based rice cake dish, but I'm just going to be using this tomato paste instead of the gochujang. And there's Memo. He's been a relatively good boy. I've finally figured out what to feed him so that he doesn't throw up and have diarrhea all the time. We worked out a different kind of formula of proportions of treats alternating with puree on top of the kibble that he's supposed to eat that stabilizes his gut system. And I can't just feed him the puree because that gives him diarrhea. And he won't eat the kibble just on its own, even though that kibble is the best thing for his gut system in the last 2 years consistently. So I've married the two to kind of just bribe him into eating it. He will, of course, lick away the puree and just leave the kibble behind, which is very frustrating sometimes, but I do what I can. And I have also resorted to putting a layer of plastic sheet on my bed when I leave the house, or even when I leave the room for an extended amount of time, like in the kitchen, because not only has he been vomiting on the bed, I found him pooping on the bed one day. And that was when we had the wildfire smoke come in. He got really sick that weekend. For the first time ever, he pooped right on the floor and outside of his litter box. He's never done that before. He did that twice more, unfortunately, once on the bed. So now we have the bed protected by plastic when I am not in the room and not able to shoo him off the bed when he starts gagging. But you know, life goes on. He's a tricky little being to take care of, but he's still alive and I'm still alive, and kind of a miracle. I mean, the vet told me to put him down last January. And he's still going so strong, right? You good? You chilling? Yeah. You chilling? You want to smell this ashwagandha? Yeah. Okay, let me give you some puree. You want some puree? I'm going to put some puree out for him. I put it out for him already, but I don't think he saw me put it out, so he's a little dumb. Hey, look, your favorite food. Your favorite food. This is the puree. It's Tastefuls by Blue Buffalo. It's really expensive. It's like $2 per packet. I try to not exceed one packet every day. I try to only use about half a packet every day, but sometimes I go through 3/4 of it. This is the only thing that can trick him into eating his good for him kibble, so I'll keep buying it. I freaking hate it. I've tried to make my own purees for him, but he just likes the packaged stuff so good. Chicken broth, chicken, tapioca starch, vegetable oil, gur gum. That's all the ingredients in here. I have ordered it bulk. I ordered this off of Chewy. I ordered the 12-pack. I can't find even more bulk than 12-pack. And if I get it on sale, sometimes it's $22. So a little bit less than $2 a packet. You know, this guy's food budget, higher than mine. Certainly by ratio of body weight higher than mine. All right. I have been lately falling in love with rice. It makes me think of Mom, actually, because Mom really loved rice. And I always try to avoid rice because Mom ate it all the time and I frankly was sick of it, but I am starting to see the light of rice. All right, let's collect our ingredients. We have the red onion. We have olive oil. This is what I bought from Costco. I don't know if this is a good brand. This is 1 liter. It came in a 2-pack because it's Costco, so 2 liters. 2 liters for under $20. I suspect it's not great olive oil, but apparently it's USDA certified organic, Canada certified organic. I don't know. Whatever. more and more I am starting to see the you get what you pay for. It wasn't always the case, but lately I find that it is increasingly the case. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Okay, I'm gonna put some fennel seeds in here because it settles my tummy a little bit. I don't always love the flavor of fennel, but I figured with the tomato sauce this could work out well. And garlic powder, dried scallions. I'm obviously still using Old Barrel and Barrel spices because I fear I cannot go back to other spices. I am ruined for life. Oh yes, I'm sorry, Memo. Okay. I bought some dill from the farmer's market, and we're gonna try to use up the stems, which are pretty fibrous and kind of gritty. But maybe we'll use up some of the more tender parts. I have gotten so old that I can't even eat this much fiber anymore. Like, I used to just swallow this. Now I can feel it going through and it does not feel good. I'm turning 37. Life is starting to edge closer to death, viscerally. A lot of people who are older than me roll their eyes at me when I say this, but truly the late 30s are where shit goes down. It is going down. All right. Then we have the tok. This is half of the tok that I froze, and I froze this back in March 10th, so it's been 3 months frozen. We don't have the chickpeas. We might use TVP. Let me just pull that out so I can remind myself that is an option. There you go, TVP. And I don't know if you guys heard, but I am very upset. This is TVP by Bob's Red Mill, which is a brand that I've always adored for mainly because it's an employee-owned company, and when Bob died, which was, I think in the past 2 years, he died fairly recently, he made it 100% employee-owned, although I have heard news that they closed down a cafe restaurant that was like kind of a trademark staple of the brand, which that doesn't feel great, and they are unrolling a rebrand of their entire product design, and I don't love it. I reshared a reel about their redesign. I love their design, by the way. I feel like it's got this like classy, I'm gonna do what I want and I'm not gonna conform sort of artisticness about it, and the new rebranding just feels like it's so smooth and generic, like airbrushed Botox kind of thing. Which we honestly don't need more of. We don't need more Botox on product design. You know what I'm saying? And finally, I started defrosting this block of feta that I had frozen. I bought this on May 25th. I know it's really fine and it's out of focus and you can't see it, but you'll just have to trust me. This was purchased on May 25th. So this has been frozen for nearly 3 months as well. I'm gonna maybe use a third of this, 2 ounces. Let me see how much this weighs. This weighs 150 grams with the container, 5.4 ounces. Okay, so maybe I'll use closer to half of this, because in my recipe I said 2 ounces, because I feel like my recipes should serve 2 people, and I figured an ounce of feta per person is like 1 serving, but maybe a little over is fine. And that's basically all the ingredients that you see here are what we're gonna use. And the only thing I'm gonna chop is onions and dill. Oh yeah, you get just one new thing every decade? That sounds great. I'll take just one thing every decade. I feel like I get one new thing every 8 months now. Yeah, Betty Crocker. That's a great description of what that rebrand reminds me of. Yes, I know my video is reversed. A while back, I did the flip, hello, like this, where it wasn't reversed. But then we discovered that that causes my camera to go in and out of focus because it's constantly trying to focus on something that's moving because I'm moving all the time, and that burns out my battery and that kills the live because this is a Pixel 2 XL, which is a phone that is nearly a decade old, and it's struggling, guys. It's struggling, but it's still going. So we're gonna try to make life easier for it, which is my life philosophy right now for myself is you can't handle it, that's cool. We're gonna back off, we're gonna chill, and we're just gonna not push it. Sorry for working so slow, but this is my pace now. How do we get Memo to stay in the frame and also you get to see what I am doing? Maybe just like that. Cute. I will pop out the chat and increase the font, and maybe I can see y'all better with my old lady eyes. This is Mom's knife. It's plastic and it's cheap and I can bend it with my hand. But it is so easy to sharpen, and I love the kind of cleaver shape because it doubles as a bench scraper. I've been loving this knife. I just wish that I had known how dull it was so that I could have sharpened it for Mom. Although knowing Mom, she would have been like, no, don't bother. Sometimes I remember I would go over to her house, she'd be cooking for me, and one of her fingers would be bandaged, and I'd be like, did you cut yourself? She's like, yeah. I mean, if I were using a knife that can't slice through a tomato, yeah, I would probably cut myself eventually too. Onions chopped. I also have some really old celery leaves. We should probably use that up today, so I will give that a chop. Just kind of like fine ribboning enough so that nothing really requires that much chewing. And I'm gonna see which of these dill stems are good to use. I love how Memo's just chillin'. He seems to be wanting to be closer to me these days. I don't know if that's a good sign that he's trusting me or a bad sign that he's getting sicker. I hope it's just that he likes me, you know? But yeah, when I saw him poop on the floor, I was like, that is not good, buddy. When cats don't use the litter box, that is a very bad sign. Okay, because the dill is very fibrous, I'm going to chop it really thin, the way you would chop like chives, basically. And I'm hoping that the cooking process can break it down. I'm probably gonna throw in the dill stems along with the onions at the very beginning so that they get more time under heat. And I'll throw in the celery leaves a little bit later. My gut is saying that at least 50% of the dill stems that I'm cutting is probably not fit for eating. Like this one, I can hear it squeaking as I'm cutting it. It's also got grit in it. But oh yeah. See, this is why cooking is like a all sensory experience thing. I hear the squeaks. I just know that's not a good sign. If it's squeaking, it's not gonna go down easy in my digestive tract. But they do be squeaking. And I'll just give this a once over chop again. Break it down, break it down. Although I do think that eating like insoluble fiber like this is still better than buying shit that's marketed to you as prebiotic. What the hell is prebiotic? You know? I know probiotic is like the good bacteria in yogurt and stuff. They just keep coming up with words. More words. More words to signify what exactly? I've unfortunately stopped buying turkey. He stopped eating it because he's very high maintenance and I would have to cook it fresh almost every day, which was pretty impossible for me to do because he would essentially stop eating the turkey once it was past day 2, which meant I would have to cook it fresh for him to accept it. And in the summer, that just wasn't going to happen. I did have some luck feeding him frozen bits, but sometimes he wouldn't react very well to the frozen stuff. He's just a very sensy boy, you know? I don't really... There's gotta be... He's teaching me how to draw the line between, like, caring for someone and caring for your own reserves. I have energy reserves. Sometimes I can't just keep placating the other being at my own expense, even if it makes me feel good to resolve someone else's problems. This is a lesson that I have been having a hard time learning. I think I have a very codependent sort of baseline. Not sure if it's cultural values instilled in me or what exactly, but yeah. Energy is not infinite. And I certainly am not either. And also sometimes I've noticed that like the more I try to do something, the less I can accomplish. You ever find that? And then you just kind of burn yourself out. And you're not even sure what the point of it all was. I guess since I have some viewers who are more experienced in life than I am, I'm curious to know about your experiences of navigating relationships with your parents. I'm curious to know if there was at one point in your life where like something clicked for you in terms of how to maintain a healthy relationship with your parents. And this is insinuating sort of growing up with not the best of relationships with your parents. But I'm happy to hear insight and tips from anyone and everyone if you have things you are willing to share. I feel like it's a rather big theme. I feel like we all kind of struggle with our parents, navigating ourselves, with our parents. Sorry, baby. I'm gonna open this. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Wow, and you didn't even have to move. He's gone really bold. He expects me to just liquefy around him. Kind of a little Gandalf troll. Thou shalt not pass sort of thing. I will say living with Memo has made eating tuna very difficult. He will not leave me alone once he knows I have popped open a can of tuna. And unfortunately, I can't really seemingly give him tuna because it seems to cause diarrhea for him. In any amount greater than, like, I would say 1 teaspoon. So sometimes I just try to give him 1 teaspoon diluted in a lot of water. But yeah, he's made it very difficult to eat. Okay, that is chopping dill. So I've yielded probably 2 cups of dill, which is way more than I call for in the recipe, but I do want to cook the dill stems because dill goes very fast, and I just know if I'm not cooking it today, I'm not going to end up cooking it before it turns bad. And then once I have the onions in the pot, I'm going to turn around and read your comments because I'm very excited to hear your advice. I have been brewing lots of tea to stay hydrated. And my stove is a little dirty. And I don't know where my cleaning cloth went, so I guess I'll use this. Oh yes, the screams of children. Gotta love that. I don't know if I can keep, oh my god, that little yawn. He's fully got me in the palm of his claws, y'all. Okay, I don't know if I can keep Memo in the frame. Listen to this. Children do be loving screaming. Okay. I'm gonna unplug you to move you to the stove. Oh, maybe this can work. So battery might drain really quickly. If we somehow get disconnected, try to stay on the live and I'll try to hop back ASAP, which might take me 3 to 4 minutes. And if I don't succeed, I'll let you know in the chat that we're gonna have to try again elsewhere. But okay, we're going to, oh, I think it's raining. Oh yeah, sky just darkened, it's raining. Okay, I'm gonna go in with like 2 tablespoons of oil. I've been using a lot of oil because fat and oil just makes things taste good, y'all. Okay, onions are gonna go in before the oil heats up because when the oil heats up too much, the onions, when they go in, they splatter immediately, and then that's a really messy cleanup for me, and I don't like that. I'm gonna go in with some spices. If I can find them. Black pepper. I love this coarsely ground black pepper. 1, because I don't have a proper grinder myself, and 2, the jaggedy coarse grind on this sort of unravels a lot of the pepper's flavor profiles that I don't even get when I grind it on my own. So it's made it very easy for me to use and also made it way more tasty for me to use. I say half a teaspoon for all of these spices, and obviously I have not been measuring it, but I will. That was fennel. Garlic powder next. And then I'm going to give the spices a nice little stir to coat them in the oil. And then once the spices smell fragrant, I'm going to add in our chopped dill stems. Again, I think half of this probably shouldn't have made it in, but chancing it. Looking nice and beautiful and sizzly there. Okay, dill is in. Going to stir, stir, stir. And then those are just going to cook until they slightly get softer in texture, which means the spices will have had time to kind of soak into the onions and the dill stems, so 3 minutes-ish. And then this time I can read up on my next rough draft instructions. Which is going to be adding in 2 cups of water and the tok. I actually have no idea if this is 2 cups of water, so I'm going to reverse measure it on the scale. Color's getting a little vibrant there. Onions are turning translucent. Oh yeah, that's 22 ounces including the bowl. How much is the bowl though? Okay, that might be just about 2 cups. verify it before it goes in. Oh, Memo has been loving desserts for some reason. I baked brownies the other day. He stuck his face in it immediately, and every day after when I was eating it, he wanted some of it. I don't know why. It was a very, very cocoa heavy brownie with spices and aquafaba. I'm not sure what it is, but he seems to like desserts. And Fred also loved desserts. So maybe cats have a thing for carbs, even though they're not supposed to have it. The dill is starting to smell kind of creamy, like dairy creamy. It's a very pleasant smell. Okay, now I'm going to add in the water, and I'm just going to see how much that was. Okay. We started with 23 ounces. We're now down to 14. Okay. Was that really 2 cups? Yeah. Wow, that was 17.7 ounces of water, which means it was just a little over 2 cups, which is fine. We can cook it down. Pretty accurate. That was like 2 cups and a quarter. So next, what I'm going to add is some dried negi scallions, just for flavor. No, I have a theory that cats definitely like baked goods. I mean, like Garfield, right? Pasta King. Cats love carbs. We just don't let them have it. Like, we love carbs. We don't even let ourselves have it. Okay, I'm starting to think that this was way too much water, but you know what? It'll be fine, because it'll be more of like a soupy thing, you know? So I can definitely reduce my recipes amount, especially considering that I might not even have 8 ounces of tok in here. Do you think this is half a pound of tok? We'll see. Wow, 8.2 ounces. Guys, I am on point with this eyeballing thing. We're cooking random trash food with some frozen Korean rice cakes found in my freezer and some dill stems, half a red onion, some spices so far in a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, and we're gonna bring this up to a boil. And once the tok is soft and mostly cooked, I'm going to add in this jar of ajvar. This is a Turkish rendition that is mostly tomato paste. It's 80% tomato paste for the most part. So this is just like a really strong tomato rice cake soup, basically, with herbs. And I'm gonna finish off with some feta. And I might add some TVP in here just for protein. I don't think a lot of people use TVP. Like, it's not like a mainstream ingredient. I think it might be, as people stop being able to afford meat. Like, the textured vegetable protein is so convincing in spaghetti meat sauces where you use ground beef, like vegan chilies. You can't really make meatballs or patties out of these without some kind of like gluey binder because they are quite crumbly. But I love TVP. So I might throw some of this in here, especially because this has way more liquid than I wanted to. The TVP is amazing at soaking up extra moisture in recipes. And it is shelf stable. So like, unlike ground meat where you buy it and you don't use it in 3 days and it either goes kind of funky or you freeze it and then you have to defrost it, this just sits dry in your pantry for a year if you keep it nice and moisture free, and it's ready for you to use whenever. I mean, I go through a bag probably every month. I think I buy anywhere from 6 to 8 bags for the whole year. Since we're just standing here, I'll give you a rundown. There's about 15 servings in this 12-ounce bag, so it's less than an ounce dry per serving. Each serving is about a quarter cup, has 80 calories, 14% dietary fiber, that's 4 grams, that's quite high for 80 calories, and 12 grams of protein, also pretty high for 80 calories. So it has some calcium, just a little bit, 4%, and then 15% per serving of your daily recommended value of potassium. Bob's Red Mill uses defatted soy flour, so this is soy based, so obviously you can't eat this if you have a soy allergy, but I have been loving it, yes. There are other versions of TVP that do not use soy, I believe, but I have really only seen soy in my parts of the woods. All right, let me see what you got for me in terms of parental relationship guidance. Oh my God, Lazarus, your cat hated the litter so much that he refused to go pee. Amazing. I still have not read Crying in H Mart. When my mom passed away, everyone told me to read that book, and honestly, it was kind of infuriating because it was just like such an obvious book recommendation for someone else who lost their mother and is also of Asian lineage and also connects with her mom through food, I guess. But maybe one day I'll read it. Maybe after I finish my Infinite Jest adventure. Okay, I just read this comment that someone never figured out a way to work with their parents while they were still alive, but I feel like the relationship with dead parents still continues. You know what I mean? It's weird. They don't die in a lot of senses because they're still in you, you know? I'm going to start with half this jar. I call for the whole jar. I just want to see what the flavor is like with just half the jar. Okay guys, I'm gonna turn the heat down and I'm gonna ask you to keep an eye on this pot for me and maybe Memo too. I really have to run to the bathroom, so I'll be right back. Okay, okay. And I will put the lid on just askew, like that. Thank you for watching. Did Memo leave when I left? Did he even stay at all? Thank you for watching after my pot though. But yeah, I ask about the parents thing because, you know, it seems to be like a recurring theme of struggling with having a balanced relationship with your parents, like where to draw the line of how much, especially as we become adults, how much their comments and their judgment on our life decisions of sorts affect us both emotionally and materially. I feel like a lot of us move through the world trying to satisfy our parents. Oh, there he is. And also this half year has just been full of my parents' friends either getting sick or passing away, and I feel like, you know, as our parents get older, navigating that relationship gets even more confusing because the roles begin to clearly switch between who's the caretaker. But mentally, I feel like we are lifelong stuck in that dynamic that we were originally born into, which is that our parents stay our parents. You see how that soup becomes glossy from the rice cakes as it cooks? I love making sloshy foods with rice cakes because of this velvety texture that it gives soups. I think you get this effect from pasta too, but I just feel like rice cakes do it to a next level degree. And it just feels very comforting to eat. I bet this texture will be so good chilled down too. Although rice cakes themselves do not taste good straight out of the fridge. They kind of develop this like chalky brittleness. But I do wonder if I cook it down into this sloshy soup, how it will turn in the fridge. Maybe the textures will be different. Okay, I'm gonna scoop out a little bit just to have a little taste test, because for the most part my recipe is kind of done here. I might add in these celery leaves after I taste this. Do you want to smell? It's hot, right? It's hot. You don't like hot things? You're scared of hot things? You want to smell it? Yeah, it's a little hot. I'm sorry, buddy. Look how pretty you are. Everybody likes to say you're very pretty, and you are. You're just very difficult to take care of. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna move you guys back up here because most of the cooking is done. And I'm gonna plug you back in because my phone is old. I know, but I don't think this is for you. But here, I'll give you another sniff. Just the rice cake. You wanna smell it? Are you interested? Are you interested? Are you interested? Are you interested? Okay, see, sometimes I have to do that. I have to like chase him out by being aggressively generous with the food, because sometimes I don't want him to actually eat it, because I truly just don't know what foods are safe for cats, and he will be attracted to carby stuff like rice. But unfortunately, because I've added so much human stuff in here, like garlic powder, I don't know what dosage will make him feel upset since his tummy is so sensy. The rice cakes are definitely done. The dill is cooked. It's cooked. It's a little tart for me. I'm trying to think. Maybe we add ketchup. Maybe we add sugar. Maybe we add honey. Or maybe we just add in the celery, because the celery is kind of sweet. Maybe. Ow! I know. But I can't give it to you. I know, babes. But yes, I turned off the heat because the rice cakes are cooked and I don't want them to like totally disintegrate. And at this point, I'm going to melt in the celery leaves that are very wilty. It's a he. It's Memo. He's very princessy, and he does look very feminine. So we joke that he might be gay. Are you a gay cat? Do you like other gay cats? Wow, that sounded like a resounding yes. Pride Month all year long. We got a gay cat aboard. You're gay? Wow. So silky, and with all the veggies incorporated and as the rice cakes break down, that was actually not too much liquid. In fact, I think this is a great consistency for adding in just half a cup maybe of the TVP, so 2 servings of the TVP. Yeah, you want to smell the TVP too? Do you want to smell the TVP too? How's that smell? He loves hearing me open Ziploc bags because all his treats come in these Ziploc bags. So every time I open a Ziploc bag, he's like, treats? Treats? Are you hungry? give you some treats that you can actually eat. Okay, would you like some chicken temptations? Would you like some chicken temptations? Yeah? It's true. Parents are just people. It's really hard to actually fundamentally understand that. Like, I can acknowledge it, but I will still get mad at my dad for being my dad, you know? Instead of just like taking him at face value as a human man. Which is so weird. And then it makes me think about all these social hierarchies that we've created for ourselves that are absolutely imprisoning our minds into these little boxes where we like keep each other neat and packed into these specific roles that limit us from just not playing those roles. It's getting heavy. This pot is getting very heavy. Hot and heavy. Oh my goodness, silky, shiny vegetable mush with carbs and protein. Okay, time to do another flavor check. See if we add some ketchup or sugar to balance out that tart, harsh tomato acidity. Did you finish your treats? So good. Thank you for finishing your treats. I'm just realizing that, like, has anyone ever made a tok lasagna? How would that even work? But that sounds delicious, doesn't it? One thing that Memo doesn't do, yes, he does poop on the bed, but he will never jump up onto any counters. That is the one accurate thing that the Fosters did tell me about. They said that he never jumps onto counters, and he has, in fact, never even jumped up to the second level on any of his cat scratching posts or trees. He's only jumped onto my windowsill at the very beginning, and then he started kind of like scratching his paws at the corner of my windowsill, which is painted. So I did not let him do that, and I put a piece of cardboard and taped it down because I didn't want there to be like potential lead poisoning happening there when he flaked off the paint. And ever since I put on the cardboard, he's never jumped onto the windowsill again. And even when half a year ago, I peeled off the cardboard from the windowsill, even with the cardboard removed, he hasn't gone back to the windowsill. So he's not a very jumpy boy. He does jump onto the bed to chill on the bed with me, but otherwise not a super jumpy boy. Okay. Oh, and another thing. I do have to drink some water, though. I found out recently via Instagram comments on a random reel where another animal in a Spanish-speaking country was being called Memo. Like, all the kids were calling this, I forget what animal it was. It looked like an anteater, but I'm not sure if it was. Walked into their classroom, and seemingly all the kids knew its name was Memo. And in the comments, there was one comment that said that Memo is a common nickname for Guillermo. And indeed it is, which makes me think that Memo could have come from a Spanish-speaking family before he came to the shelter and me. And maybe his full name is Guillermo. What do you think? Does he look like a Guillermo? Okay, time to drink some water. Yes. Did you drink any water yet? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, this is the lychee flavored black tea from Harney & Sons. I gotta be honest, I'm not getting a lot of lychee flavor out of this. I think this one is a miss, unfortunately. Sounded really good for the summer because who doesn't like a little floral, fruity, sweet lychee flavor in the black tea? I thought that was a very interesting combo, but neither in smell nor in taste does it really come through. It actually smells a little bit more like a rose. Like a rose cherry instead of lychee, but maybe lychee is a rose cherry. I don't know, you tell me. But it's nice. It sort of softens the black tea harsh acidity, dark, tannic edge, and it plateaus it out to a sort of candy wash without actual sweetness, just the smell of candy, if you can imagine smelling a strawberry starburst floating off your palate when you sip on this tea, but not as artificial as strawberry starburst. Have a good day, South Korea. Thanks for tuning in. It is, the tea is Harney & Son. The last time I placed an order from them was possibly 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe longer. So I just placed another order and I got like 6 different teas to hit the shipping minimum. So I've been drinking tea more. We'll see how long it takes for me to get through all these teas, but I was starting to get tired of drinking water and I figured I'd treat myself to some teas. Also, I've been really struggling with energy drains and I figured getting some caffeinated teas could be good to try to have a little energy pump. Okay, so I'm going to taste this and then we'll crumble some feta over it and see if the feta improves the flavor. I gotta be honest, this is so much easier than shooting a cooking video while cooking and then sitting down to edit it and then filming voiceover. This is way more manageable to do. I wish you could see the gloss on this. My phone really is not translating how glossy it looks, but it looks really marvelous. It looks almost like a mirror. You see that shine? Okay. Just from cooking for 20 minutes, I'm sweating bullets. Oh yeah, the celery really tamed the tomato dominance. Mm-hmm. I think it was a great call to not use more than half that jar. And now, some feta. Yes, he's coming over for the cheese, of course. He cannot have this. This is too salty. Simply too salty for you, baby. But I will go ahead and have me a couple of chunks. He's cute though, no? I was not expecting to make this much food. I feel like this honestly could serve 4 people if you weren't like all ravenous. If you were ravenous, it would serve 2 people with about 3 cups of food per person. I think there's at least 6 cups of food in here. He's hiding. So you can't see him, of course. I think the feta is gonna be amazing. I'm just going to roughly smash it in. And then I'm gonna go ahead and jot these notes down so that I know like half the amount of the tomato sauce. Man, that brininess, that saltiness just does a lot for the flavor. The feta kind of dominates, but it also marries a lot of the flavor together. It makes it feel like a more complete dish, for sure. And it totally eliminates my desire for adding sugar in here. I think the dairy component of it just takes care of that. I will let the flavor cool down a little bit. I think it's gonna get even more delicious as it's not piping hot. Overall, very satisfied. The dill has broken down quite nicely too. It's not as fibrous as I was fearing. So, what a success. What a success. And I don't know if you caught that little plop when the tuk hit my serving dish, but that is exactly the sound a chef once told me properly cooked pasta should make. At the time, she said it was such an obscene sound, and I gotta be honest, at the time I had not had a lot of sex. Maybe a decade later I understood what she was referring to, and it just made me cringe so hard. I hate how as an adult, everything turns into a sexual innuendo or joke. I remember in college, whenever I was in English class, people would start like sniggering, giggling at just any potential innuendo. And it makes the world so much smaller when I feel like your mind's in the gutter and just constantly looking for that sexual connotation. I wish I could go back to before I knew anything about sex sometimes. Yes, Harney and Sons does make the Paris tea. Yeah? What's up? You want more treats? Do you think you would be happy with more treats? May I interest you in some more treats? Since you won't eat your dry food anymore? He's like, you're eating? I should be eating too. Come on. I was originally going to make rugelach cookie dough, but it is way too hot in my kitchen right now to make that dough. So what I might do as I'm eating my dinner here is to make the walnut filling and to cook down a cherry jam. The dough needs to be in a relatively cool temperature to make, otherwise all the butter and cream cheese just melts into the dough and doesn't give it that flaky short crust kind of result. I gave you too many treats. He didn't finish his treats this time. Swimming in abundance. Ooh. For any simple recipe, how much broth or liquid would you put in it for like a pound of rice cake? I would just potentially cook it like a pasta if you wanted to do that, just to make sure you're cooking the rice cakes through and then you can drain it. But I like adding the rice cakes straight into some broth so that it thickens that broth and you don't lose that extra carb. So for the half pound, to reach that saucy consistency, I used 2 cups. So for 1 pound, it would be a quart or 4 cups of water, which might be too much for you. So it's kind of dependent on the recipe and your end result consistency desired. There's a lot of tteokbokki recipes on the internet. You're welcome to check those out and reference those. I don't actually have a lot of experience cooking rice cakes for the most part. I've maybe bought it 4 times in my life total. And I developed one recipe using it at Delish and never really developed any other recipes past that. Just cooked it for my own purposes, which as you can see is very trashy looking. This is my forte. It's just hashtag trash food. I love those little packets of chemicals that you dump into water. I have this horchata one that I got from the Fancy Food Show. I still have half that tube. It tastes so good, but I'm never gonna buy shit like that, you know? I'd rather just drink tea. But I love it. I enjoy it. Here's the key to Purr Pops. I just stopped giving them to Memo. It got to a point where he was demanding 2, 3 a day, and it got to the point where I think it was making him throw up. This cat is teaching me and him how to moderate things, because even if something is good for him, if he eats too much of it, he just starts throwing it back up. So if your cats need to be starved off of Purr Pops, just starve them for a week, not give them any Purr Pops. And then bring it out like once every month. They might have a hunger strike for a couple of days, but you know, eventually they'll eat. I don't have a recipe for cream of broccoli soup. I don't really cook with a lot of cream or milk for the most part. I almost never buy it. But I was putting silken tofu to make cream sauce. So I wonder if that might be a very interesting recipe to develop, like a silken tofu cream of broccoli soup. You guys, I have been freezing fruit. My latest is freezing like mandarin slices. You can nibble on it like it's a portable granita pocket. Has the consistency of one of those ice pops that you like kind of break in half a little bit. Comes in the clear plastic tubes and you just like squeeze it up into a slushie. Kind of has that consistency before anything starts melting. Feels great. And the best part is, because it's contained in its own membrane, it doesn't melt all over your hand as it defrosts. It's still in its own pocket. So it's also so cool to look at the little flavor packets inside. I don't even know what you call the individual units, the juice packs inside a segment of orange, but fun. I have to think about how to pack this up. Amazing. Oh, basically a perfect fit. August 10th. Slide it over to the side. Sometimes I can't start on another cooking adventure until I clean up the previous project. I'm trying to clear this pot and get it into the sink. Okay, let me write down the notes for this recipe. I mean, I could just share my Google Doc that I keep my random notes in, but here's the thing, I don't want to publish my own notes because they're my notes, and I don't even feel like I should be sharing them with people because I haven't tested them, and it gets really complicated because then people start sharing it with other people without the context of like, these are just June's notes and not actual recipes. Which is why I put these lives on to show you my general thought process so that you can do the same with your own ingredients, because I have feta and rice cakes and ajvar on hand and dill stems and random celery leaves, but you won't. You'll have totally different ingredients. I thought about making recipe videos this way to give you a general format of things, but like, it's really difficult because if you were to substitute in potatoes instead of dill stems, it could probably still work, but it's gonna mess up the final texture. It's not gonna be as shiny because the potatoes will break down into flourier starch. So they're just gonna be like vastly different creations. There's really no ratio I can come up with it. A few years ago, I got my hands on this book that was basically baking ratios, and I referred to it for a little while, and I think it was kind of like foundational for a period of 2 weeks in my head, and then I just totally forgot about it because, I don't know, at the end of the day, a ratio is just there to kind of be a template of thought and not a template of practice, if that makes sense. It's kind of like brain food for you to consider and not really for you to follow as a procedure. What is IP these days, you know? What is intellectual property with AI? Nothing that we do is private anymore. We don't own anything anymore. We can't really like buy things to keep anymore. We just rent movies and we rent music and we stream music and we don't get to own any music, you know? And my personal preference is to just be like, yeah, fuck it. Have everything that I have. Go ahead. I'm gonna share everything that I come up with. You can use it to whatever degree. And that also liberates me from having to like finesse something until it's perfect for you to consume. I just give you what I have and then you put your own rendition on it. Like that actually works better for me in my mental scape. Because if I make something that I feel like is perfect and then it just gets stolen by someone, if you can actually steal ideas, you know, what idea is 100% original anyway? That's a philosophical question. That's going to be pretty detrimental and heartbreaking to my own sense of ego, and I'm trying to avoid building up that sense of ego because I know how fragile ego can be, and it's just like restaurants in New York City. It's not a great investment to build up an ego. It can go bankrupt so fast these days. I microwaved these walnuts in the microwaved in the microwave, instead of toasting them in the oven because I just could not turn on the oven to toast nuts, but they're great. They're great this way. That plate of walnuts is about 1 cup of walnuts. I used about 2 minutes to toast it, instead of turning on the oven for 5 to 10 minutes, you know? Like, microwave toasting nuts, possibly my greatest invention. It's not IP really, but my greatest hack, maybe. Okay, check this out. I was thrifting with my friend Nez, and I found the silicone mold, and I've been making myself pineapple ice cubes. How cute is that? You can see the crisscross pattern. I mean, obviously they just melt into ice cubes, but like the momentary satisfaction of having pineapple ice cubes. Live for your inner 4th grader, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever you wanted in the 4th grade, make sure you keep that alive. Because I think we need a little more 4th graders in ourselves. Anyway, I think this was like $1 or something for this amount of joy that it brings me. Don't get me wrong though, I would never have bought that shit full price. My inner child is unfortunately not worth whatever that full price was. Okay, we're gonna make the walnut filling for one of the flavors of arugula that I wanted to bring. It's so funny. I obviously am not Jewish at all, but I love all these Jewish desserts like arugula, challah, hamantashen. What else? What are the other Jewish desserts? I just feel like I don't like. I can't even remember the name of it, but I don't like the one where you just like bake a pasta cake. I don't like that one, but almost every other Jewish dessert I like. Pineapple ice cubes light up my day. Pulling up my brainstorm recipe. Walnut filling. 3/4 cup walnuts, 1/4 cup of panela sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, vanilla, cardamom. I don't think my spice grinder can handle 3/4 cup. Maybe we'll do a 1/3 cup at a time. I don't have a mini food processor, unfortunately. Okay. So that means 2 tablespoons of panela. Running dangerously low on panela. I'm gonna add in a pinch of this. This is sea salt with a zest of an orange. Just gonna throw in a pinch of that. Then we have cinnamon. I'm going to just eyeball this. A dash of vanilla powder. And cardamom. Are you here, cardamom? Yes. I love my spice grinder. It's such an amazing thing. What was in here? Oh yes, this was orange segments. It's safe. So I feel like arugula is just a cinnamon roll, but in cookie form, basically. Right? That's what it seems like to me. Let me introduce you to one of my thrifted offset butter knives. Love this one. So what we basically made here is a sugary walnut butter, but a loose cakey one, not a runny buttery one. I dig it. I dig it. Wow, this is gonna finish off my panela. I have started to use so much less sugar in my cooking once I got on the Boil Up and Barrel sugars, because these are expensive, guys. Before sugar got commercialized, shit was difficult to make, and so I guess the only way we got cheap sugar is a history of slavery. Thank you, slavery, for everything that we have at the convenient pace that we have them at. Okay, pinch of orange salt, a dash of cardamom, a heavy dash of cinnamon, a smaller dash of vanilla. Here's what it looks like. I used a little more walnuts in this batch, and as you can see, it's struggling. So really, I can't exceed over just the height of a quarter of this container, because once I go over, it just refuses to mash, basically. I'll dump out some of the clumpier, smoother bits to make room. Oh man, it smells so good. It almost smells like we're already baking. I can see this being a really fantastic base for a gluten-free cheesecake. Instead of graham cracker crust, you just use like walnut paste, basically. I mean, it has basically the same kind of compactable, pressable crust texture as a graham cracker crust, so it's actually pretty perfect. That's an idea for when the weather cools down a little bit and I can start baking cheesecake again. Man, that sounds delicious. We basically turn this into walnut paste. I'm just gonna sprinkle the rest of my maybe teaspoon of panela sugar on here, because that last bit was just 4 straight walnuts without really any sugar left in the grinder with it. So just want to make sure it's nice and seasoned, and then I'll go ahead and give it a nice mix and make sure everybody is a little happy together. And then I'm just gonna fridge this for whenever I make the rugelach. Maybe Thursday. I'm not gonna label that because I know I'm gonna use it up before the end of the week and I'm lazy. Okay. I'll wash this later. And the next project for me is to make a cherry jam. I have had this jar of Luxardo cherries since I left Delish. It expired in 2023, December 31st, 2023. Well, it's best before that. I did open it at the end of 2022. I used maybe 2 cherries out of here. I think that is not mold. I think that is sugar crystallization because I have been spotting this sort of like pretty even dotting. It looks like crystallization. There's nothing fuzzy growing on it. It's just crystals of sugar, basically. And the liquid in there is still very loose and thick. So what I think I'm gonna do is basically cook down some of these cherries and turn it into a jam so that some of the Rugala could have this cherry jam in it. This apparently is like 20. Crazy expensive. Oh, my comments had frozen on my pop-out chat. That was why I was like, huh, nobody is saying anything, because the window froze. Let me reload. Let me take a break. Let me have some food, and then we can go into cooking cherries. Yeah, I didn't make this. This is Luxardo. Let me turn it around so you can read it. This is the fancy maraschino cherries. As you can see, it is not bright neon red. It's not just a sugar water. It's actually a thick syrup that runs like honey. And it's made in Italy. And one of these goes for over 20 bucks, I believe. And it's 50% cherries, 50% marasca syrup. I have no idea what marasca syrup is, but the ingredients is cherries, sugar, and marasca cherry juice with glucose, citric acid, natural color, maraschino flavor. So 1 cherry is 10 calories. There's about 50 cherries according to this jar per container. So I'm determined to turn these fancy cherries into a jam to put it into my Rugala cookies. Let me just Google real fast, because I don't know if people put wet jam into Rugala. Oh yeah, people do raspberry Rugalas. Okay. Whoa, some of these look delicious. Okay. Wow, 1 cup. 1 cup of cherry, raspberry, or strawberry preserves. Should I cut this with a knife, you think, or just try to cook it down in the pot and mash it? I feel like mashing it would be way easier than cutting it. And I'm very lazy. I'm extremely lazy. I also want to put a drop of almond liqueur or almond extract in there, because I think it's really going to bring out the cherry flavors quite well with a drop of almond extract. Okay. No. Panela is a unrefined or less refined sugar. It's like kind of the unrefined sugar that comes out of Colombia. Sometimes it gets packed in these like little cones of sorts, and then you grind it down to use powdered panela, but Brown Barrel just sells it powdered because our main audience is Americans who probably want sugar to be powdered. But it's basically like a caramel rich flavored brown sugar. If you can imagine brown sugar with like actual flavor notes and qualities to it beyond just sweet, panela. So Brown Barrel carries like, I think 4 single origin sugars. 5 maybe, including coconut sugar. Panela is 1. I think this was one of the original. I think the second one that they carried was maple sugar. This one's from Vermont. Let me turn the camera around so you can actually read these labels. Panela, kettle cooked cane sugar, comes from Colombia. That's the texture of it. It's sort of like a brown sugar but crumblier and drier. Has the taste of cream, mountain downpour, and green cane juice. I taste a lot of caramel flavors in here. A little bit of like toffee flavors, if you like toffee candy. Then you have the maple sugar, which obviously tastes like maple syrup. So I think toasted marshmallow is a great tasting note here. That is pretty accurate. Then you have Golden Crystal, which is my preferred sugar to bake with. It's basically cane sugar, but it is like sugar in the raw, turbinado kind of textures. It's great for sanding sugar purposes when you're baking a pie and you're throwing some textured sugar on top. I baked brownies with this on top. It melted perfectly into like an icing on its own after it came out of the oven and cooled. Has a very pure flavor. It's like honey-like, but very, very plain. And then my favorite brown sugar that Brown Barrel carries is the Jaggery. This one just tastes very earthy and peaceful. It really does remind me of a rainstorm. It just feels very tranquil of a flavor, so it feels very meditative for some reason. Then there's also the coconut sugar, which I find to be oddly savory. It tastes better in savory cooking than in baked goods to me. Here, come, I'll show you, because I just organized my spice rack recently. After I left my post at Brown Barrel, I was like, I gotta get my shit in order. So I organized my shelves again, and I'm very proud of the organization work that I did. So top shelf on the right is all of my baking stuff. So you'll see all the sugars here, cardamom extract, and then I also have royal cinnamon. Obviously, I share this with all of my friends who have never tasted burlap and barrel spices before. Reiki anise, which is my favorite anise seed I've ever tasted. It is so rich in flavor. It is almost sweet on its own. Unfortunately, was discontinued because it didn't sell because nobody likes anise seed except me, I guess, because it's got that licoricey flavor, but I love it and it's so nice on my digestive system. And my coworker Christina heard that I love the Reiki anise and was very upset that it was discontinued, and she apparently was such a burlap and barrel fanatic customer that she ordered this whole container and never opened it. So she just sent it to me, and as you can see, the best by date was 2024 because they discontinued this in 2023. But spices don't really expire, y'all. Yes, the flavors will get a little bit lighter as time goes on, but if you have high quality spices, they will keep for years if you keep them nice and out of the light and moisture. So I'm very glad to have that because that's honestly one of the first spices that I fell in love with at Burlap and Barrel. Is I could not believe how much I liked the anise seed. Saffron Golden Milk, one of the newest blends. Absolutely love this, whipped into butter and just smeared on toast. I love it in oatmeal. I like it in smoothies. You can make a curry with it even. It's very applicable to sweet and savory as long as you're open-minded and creative about the ways that you use these things. Like, there's no sugar in here and there's no salt. It's just spices. So it can swing any which direction you want it to swing in. But I love this blend, so I got a whole container of it. Then the hot chocolate, which I have been using more as a baking ingredient than as a drinking ingredient, but I'm thinking about making a smoothie with this with silken tofu tomorrow maybe, to see if I can have some drinkable breakfast. Morogoro cacao, which came back in stock after 2 years of being back in stock and then sold out immediately, basically. Really nice plain cacao powder that just feels nutty and almost tannic in that wine sense, like a high quality wine has that tannic feel to it. The coconut sugar clumps a lot because Burlap and Barrel doesn't put any anti-caking agents, so it just absorbs all the moisture in the air and kind of clumps together, but they're very breakable by hand. I have learned that that is way better in savory food. And I have a huge jar of the sea salt. And then here are my big sized savory stuff. These are actually honeys. The smoked honey has ruined me for all other honeys. It's such a weird honey, but I love it. And then these are basically spices that I have on hand as secondary spices or as gifting spices, because everybody loves everything Bagel Crunch. I have a couple of them on hand to gift to friends or strangers if I'm going to an event. And then here are my most used spices. Actually, this level is most used spices. We have our chilies. Here, I love the smoked paprika. That one is probably my highly used chili. And then we have all the herbs here. This is actually a different species of bay leaf, and it tastes like butterscotch to me. It's weird, and I love it. The dill and parsley was a limited edition in a Spice Club maybe 2 years ago. I've been saving it because I don't want to finish using it, but we are almost done. And then I have some of the blends and more like ethnic spices here, like cumin, coriander, curry, 5-spice, kebab. This is a New Mexican green chili that is really nice, just kind of sprinkled as a seasoning instead of cooked with. I feel like the flavor of that kind of disappears in the cooking process. Here's my alliums, so shallot, garlic, onion, black garlic, scallions. I use these fairly often. This secondary shelf is like where my most used savory spices live. This is my like baking spices, which I use often, but I don't use that often because I don't bake that often. But we got orange powder here. That's really interesting. We got some out of stock blends. The cocoa and spice is out of stock forever. Everything nice, out of stock forever. The everything brownie is currently out of stock. I think it'll come back. Vanilla powders, way stronger than vanilla extract, and you can see the specs in the baked goods, so that's fun. And then some of these are like Spice Club limited edition ones, like the carob and the stevia. That's a leaf, by the way, not the white powder. And then here are my less used ones, but still ones that I really like, and mostly collaboration blends. That one's really old. That one's from like 2023, possibly. That one was with our collaboration with Martha. So yeah, I got a lot of spices, and these are my least used spices. Like, I've had the allspice ever since 2023. I don't really ever use allspice. I'll probably have that jar until I move out and just start cleaning out, because I use that like once a year, maybe. I don't know. The kelp was a weird one. It's been since discontinued. It's very oceany, but it kind of disappears in smoothies. So, and then the shimmer salt is very discontinued. And then these were the spices that you saw in my cold brew tea episodes. And these are non-burlap and barrel spices. I have like the ketchup one from Trader Joe's. Then I have this soy sauce salt from this company called Sinsoy. And I met them in 2023 at the Fancy Food Show, but they have since gone out of business. So that is no more, ever, again. And then I have some samples. Yep. Those are my spices. I have a lot of spices. Okay, I think I did that to just procrastinate on this cherry cooking process. I feel like I should be cutting it, but I also don't want to cut it, because then the syrup's gonna get everywhere. Let's just cook it. Let's just cook it. Oh, it's so thick. Holy schmoly. I think that was 2/3 of the jar. It absolutely smells beautiful. Like, maraschino cherries don't smell like this. The red supermarket kinds, the neon red ones. These actually just smell like deeply aged cherries. Wow. Okay. This is like $15 worth of cherries. What I might do is I might just like go in with a pair of scissors, chop them up there. Ooh, and I might add some water I might just go ahead and like give them a couple of chops each so that I have more surface area to break them down. These cherries hold a lot of memories for me because the last time I opened them, I still thought the guy I had met on Hinge would be the love of my life. Oh, how wrong and innocent I was. I'm gonna see how the sugar crystals in these break down. Oh yeah, I don't even need to add sugar or water at this point because all of the syrup is like melting into its own pool of juices. I think the fridge had just solidified everything, including the sugar crystals and the syrup. But now under heat it is liquefying very well. I might try to see if I can use some of this cherry syrup to make like a cocoa glaze because I want this to be like a chocolate cherry flavor rougoulet. So I was thinking of making a chocolate paste with just cacao. We'll see. We shall see. This is not easier than cutting on a cutting board, but it is cleaner. All the juices are remaining in the pot where I want them to be. Maybe I should come in here with the immersion blender. I think I might make a splattery mess. But I definitely don't want these chunks of cherries to be so present. Before that syrup cooks any further and burns, I'm just going to add in a few drops of almond extract. take it off the heat. I'm gonna drain out some of the syrup so that we can try to test that cocoa powder. Fudge concoction. Leave a little bit in here, but not too much. And then I'm gonna move you back here. And I'm going to try to immersion blend this cherry. It's very little cherry to work with. But it is super sweet, so. You see him in the corner? He's back. Okay. It is very sweet. Okay, so now we have the cherry juice. I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of butter into the jam right now because I think I did still cook it too much. So I'm going to try to calm it down and prevent it from solidifying into the candy stage. We'll see. Sorry, the bright light was just making me too hot. Yeah, you heard butter and you came. You're a butter boy. You're a butter boy. He smells the butter. See, this is why I don't buy these old, because he can still smell butter. From a whole room away, he can smell it. Okay, the butter has been worked in. Nice. I really like that. I'm gonna add in a pinch of the citrus salt because I think it could really use a little bit of that citrus lift and also that saltiness that comes to kind of make sweeter things taste more like themselves instead of just masked by sweetness. So just a pinch of that orange salt in there. And then I'm going to put it into this cup, which should roughly give me about a half cup. I was talking with a friend at dinner yesterday, and I thought up of this dessert idea because we were talking about complementary colors, and we were talking about red and orange being complementary colors and how that would work. So I started thinking about it in terms of food because of course I do. I thought up of this blood orange sorbet topped with a peach infused whipped cream, topped with some crushed candied rose petals, and then there would be like a bourbon whiskey maple syrup caramel drizzle over it. Do you think that tastes as good as it sounds, or do you think that's too many flavors? I feel like all the components have like 1 degree of separation from each other. I don't know if all of them would work, but like for sure, I think, for example, the blood orange and the peach whipped cream works well. I think the peach whipped cream and the candied rose petals work well. I think the bourbon maple syrup caramel would taste good also with the peach whipped cream. I just don't know if all of them come together. But anyway, it sounded pretty. I like the idea of it. Okay, that is our very pricey jam. So as you can see, the bit that wasn't incorporated with the butter is already starting to like solidify into a layer of candy. Delicious, but it's way better with the butter. And then this is also going to get some butter and cocoa powder added to it, because chocolate usually has fat and this does not have fat. So that was like a little over a tablespoon of butter with probably 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Let's see how this mixes into a paste. I'm hoping this would turn into like a fudge consistency, like a hot fudge consistency, and then once it cools, along with the cherry jam that we just made, I could smear it all over top of the rugelach dough and bake it. Right now I'm currently worried about like it potentially over caramelizing during the bake. So we'll see how that works. What did my original recipe say? A 1/4 cup of hot cocoa. With some instant coffee too, wow. Okay. Well, let's see if it needs the instant coffee in terms of flavor. I'm going to add in a little bit of the citrus salt in here too, again for flavor pickup. The butter I'm using is salted, so there is a little bit of seasoning in there as well. But this is just trying to make the cherry syrup a little bit brighter and to gift that chocolate another dimension, because I'm only using raw cocoa powder here. I was thinking about using hot chocolate mix, but the syrup is way too sweet already on its own, and the hot chocolate mix has sugar in it, so I don't want to double up on the sugar. Also, more sugar means more burning, because of the caramelization that would happen during the bake. So I want to try to minimize the sugar content here a little bit, as much as possible. Okay, that's looking pretty smooth. I don't think it's going to set up into a chocolate paste, so we might have to go in with more cocoa powder here. a little more salt. I think that chocolate could use it. We might go in with more butter too, but I also don't want to make it too oozy in the bake. We would have half a stick of butter in the filling. I can feel it sort of thickening too as I stir it, which is cool. And you could see the bottom of the bowl, which means it's actually thickening, carrying more body. Ooh, yum. Actually, a little more salt. I think the salt is helping, y'all. That citrus salt. I knew I made it for some reason. Didn't know it was going to be for this reason. It's kind of like a sea salt citrus chocolate. That's looking pretty luscious. I hope it sets up in the fridge a little bit more, but I think the flavor is pretty good. It's like hitting that perfect note of dark chocolate, actually. It is tasting a little bit astringent, I think, from the lack of fat. Chocolate usually has a lot more fat than just, you know, a tablespoon and a half of butter, but I think this texture is good for sandwiching into arugula. Very experimental. Most recipes just call for kind of chocolate or Nutella, and this is definitely more runny than Nutella, but I think it'll do. Oh yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, let's stop with the tinkering. Okay. I won't be online tomorrow, but maybe I'll be online on Wednesday to make progress on this baking project. Are you guys interested in seeing that? If you are, I will come back online to carry out the next stage of this baking project. Wow. Love these flavors together. Okay, so I have a spatula with a little bit of this chocolate. I just want to taste as I go. So before I assemble the rugelach, I want to see what does it taste like with this chocolate fudge syrup and this cherry, if I could get some cherry on here from my immersion blender. Since I have so little jam to work with, I don't want to dig into that jam. I've scraped scraped some scraps of tastings together. Okay, a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of cherry. Honestly, in like not a bad way, it reminds me of those kosher desserts where there's like no dairy, because we only use butter, which is dairy obviously, but there's like no cream in here. I think the flavor will get better once it sits. For sure. You can't see him because he really likes to hide right behind the barrier. But he's been laying there the whole time for these past few minutes. What a funny little guy. Guillermo. Okay, well, I'm gonna clean up. And I'll see you later in the week to do this, I guess. But this is all the energy I have for today, so thank you for joining me. I don't like using plastic wrap, so I'm just gonna put a plate like this, and then stack them in the fridge. I'm also gonna eat this probably greenhouse grown tomato. It is tomato season right now. I didn't buy it from the farmer's market. I bought it from my supermarket, 3 for $1. I just wanted to see how bad a poorly grown tomato could be. So I'm gonna wash this. It feels too hard. It feels like they ripened this on the truck. What you doing? Yeah? It's a tomato. You want to smell it? It's a tomato. Do you want to see a tomato? Not bad. Doesn't look terrible. Okay. Smells decent. Tastes pretty good. I mean, it's not like mind-blowing like a farmer's market tomato would be, but it's also not $7 for one tomato. Actually not too meaty at all. Fairly crisp. Okay, thanks for joining us for cooking today, and I'll see you sometime soon, hopefully. Take care until then.